Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I learn more about how technology is transforming the world of business. And we have a different topic every single day. And today I want to explore the world of customer relationship management, or CRM systems. And I think for most people listening, they would have all used a CRM at some stage in their career. And so much has changed in the last 12 months. And I find myself wanting to understand why a CRM is more important today, and especially with things like remote selling. And we'll also understand why some people just don't use CRMs and why they might need to fix that, and also explore the future of CRM and sales and how data automation, sales automation, AI and all those other technologies can play a critical role too. So I've invited Jeroen Corthout, co-founder of Salesflare, onto the podcast today. And Salesflare is an intelligent CRM that is incredibly popular with startups and small businesses alike. And its zero-input sales pipeline tool can think and work for the user, not the other way round. So that got me intrigued too. So it does sound like we got a lot to talk about, doesn't it? So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Belgium, where Jeroen is waiting to speak with us now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Jeroen Corthout. I'm co-founder and CEO of Salesflare. And Salesflare is an easy-to-use and automated CRM. So CRM is for customer relationship management, is software. So basically, it's software that helps actually small and medium-sized businesses to follow up their prospects and customers in a much better way, to really have a system to be able to follow up a lot of people, but make everyone sort of have the feeling that they're the only one that you as a sales team is caring about. And how we differentiate then with other CRMs out there, CRM software, because there's really 640 listed on G2, I think. Is that most of these fail, or all of these fail, when people start lacking the discipline to fill them out. And our system actually automates the data input. So it picks up all the information about who you're in contact with, who they are, when you've been in touch about what, whether they read your emails, what's more about their company on the internet, what's in their email signatures, all this kind of stuff. It just grabs together by integrating with all the different places where the information is, and then helps you to easily stay on top of your customers.
And I think so much has changed over the last 12 months. And I'm curious, do you think a CRM such as Salesflare is even more critical today, especially with so much remote selling, etc.? And presumably, if you do, why do you think so many people don't use CRM still?
So during COVID, what we noticed is that there were companies still clinging on to spreadsheets or to nothing at all, that finally started looking for a CRM, usually because all of a sudden there was this burning issue, which was they didn't have any view on their sales pipeline, and they needed one because it was a hard time. So we've definitely seen quite some people like that approaching us, that we had been in touch with even like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and finally said, okay, we really need this now. Does it become, apart from that, more relevant? I do think so, because if you're looking at remote selling, one of the advantages of remote selling, or the main one, is that it's way more efficient. It means that you can easily scale up your sales pipeline. You can talk to way more people in a day. You don't have to drive around the country. And then maybe if you have an awesome day, you can see 4 or 5 people. You can actually fill your whole day back to back with meetings. That's what's happening to me lately as well. And with that increased scale, it is ever more relevant to have a CRM, because you cannot just rely on some half-baked system or your memory. You need something that really organizes stuff for you, and in a productive way. And actually, what also makes it easier to adopt a CRM and to automate a lot is that with going remote, a lot of the interactions also become even more digital. So it's much more easy for a CRM like Salesflare to pull out the information from your emails, your calendar, your phone, social media, all kinds of interactions like the email tracking interactions, website interactions. If all of these interactions also start being over the internet. So yeah, definitely. I think the current situation adds some fuel to the fire there, like in many other places where we made a huge jump when it comes to digitalization. Same happens in CRM software space.
And I'm curious as well, with AI and automation being such big buzzwords right now, and it seems everyone's talking about them, how do you see technology impacting the future of CRM and indeed sales, of course?
It all starts there with proper data. There's companies like the biggest one out there called Salesforce that promote their AI efforts with fancy names like Einstein and stuff. But it's very hard to do anything relevant and useful if you first don't have access to all the data. And that's something, so like part of our vision at Salesflare is first we fix the data issue. We make sure that it's not dependent on the salespeople's manual data input anymore. It actually is organized by computers who are much better at it. They can also validate the data, so you make sure that you always have proper data in every single field. It starts connecting things automatically. It starts tracking things automatically. It's all very well organized and complete. And from there, and I believe this is going to be both because we start fixing the data issue, and secondly, because AI is making quite big breakthroughs lately, not just on the sort of technology that starts being available, but also how accessible it starts to be. I think we're going to see starting in the next 2 years, we'll start seeing a lot of sales automation fueled by AI popping up. The latest thing that we're, for instance, experimenting with is OpenAI's GPT-3, the general purpose technology 3, to see whether we could interpret communication and then from there suggest other communication, things like that. Those are the more complex things that we start being able to do. But it only has been since recently that we even can do basic things, which was all because we didn't have the data.
So what do you think is the most effective thing that you're doing today in terms of, let's say, customer acquisition? And how do you think, and how is what you're doing now different from, let's say, what you were doing 12 months ago? Because it just seemed like so much has changed in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I think our main channels haven't really changed. We get most of our customers through word of mouth, like personal recommendations, through search engines, people looking for CRMs, people checking out review sites, and our content marketing. We write pieces about how you need to do specific things. And then somewhere in there, we start introducing how you can also do that with Salesflare. What has mainly changed, I would say, is one, we used to go to events and we would talk to people there, promote things. Lately, we focus much more on partnerships during those events than on customer acquisition. But still, we had a lot of events going on where I was a speaker in between, I think, April and June. But then when the summer came along, the whole huge wave of events started becoming much smaller. And I don't think we've seen a lot of events after the summer. What we've been focusing on a lot is, and it's also relevant to this, is getting on podcasts. It's Podcasts are more popular than ever. Podcasts are a really great medium for people to share stuff without having to put too much effort in it, and without having to completely curate what it is that you're saying. You can listen to all kinds of people that are not, let's say, copywriters writing blog posts, sharing their experience. And it's really, really growing. And we've decided to double down on this. So I think I've been, over the past 3 months or so, I've been on more than 100 podcasts.
Wow.
That's incredible. And it seems to be working. Like, people hear about us in a different way, non-promotional, just here to share value with everyone listening. And they hear the name Salesflare. They might be interested in what it is we do, and at some point, when they look for a CRM, sign up.
Love that. And what about tech conferences and events and exhibitions and talking to people face to face? They were the good old days, wasn't they? It feels like a lifetime away.
Yeah, that was fun, and I certainly miss it. Like we used to go to this same conference every year consistently. It's called Slush in Helsinki in Finland.
Yeah.
And this is the first year in 6 years, I think, that we're not going. It's sad in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, we would always have a good time, meet a lot of people, make a lot of good connections. They have a really great meeting platform in which you can book meetings with people. That's sort of gone. I haven't seen much that is replacing it very effectively. I think that the focus nowadays is going to either more specialist workshops, then some talks, which are basically like webinars where people can get in. And then some things are cool. I for instance, I used a tool called Conversation Starter to, like at Slush, like book a lot of meetings after each other. And within the tool, you can see like who is looking to talk about what, and then you can select the right people. You can book meetings. They have a little calendar in there, and then as soon as the event comes along, you basically go from meeting room to meeting room online. Very efficient, very, very nice to meet people quickly. I've recently signed up for Lunch Club also, which is a thing with which you can do a similar thing on a more consistent basis. I haven't done any meetings yet so far. And another thing that was cool is this virtual wine tasting events for networking, which brings back a bit of the human aspect, I would say, because there's also the wine involved, which helps. And then you all get this box of wine. You got a box of wine, a sausage, and this kind of thing to keep the wine well and wine good, like and three. 2 bottles of one red, one white, and one how do you say, sparkling wine.
Like the sound of that. That is something I could sign up to. But I mean, what have been your biggest challenges, though, that you've faced at Salesflare over the last 12 months, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Yeah, we're extremely lucky that we're a software company selling remotely all over the world. We didn't have to change that much. Our main issues were keeping our internal communication flowing as it was flowing before. So we used to work all from the same office, and we sort of relied on that to communicate with each other. Like, you're next to each other and you share some stuff, and then everybody sort of knows about everything. But it's only when we moved all of this online that we figured that actually we weren't that effective at communicating by being in the same office. We didn't really have a system. We were just haphazardly, accidentally communicating, you could say. And in the first few months, we've really worked very hard on putting a system in place to make sure that everyone always knows about everything. And it's a bunch of simple things. If you type remote team Salesflare in Google, you'll find a full blog post on that. So I don't have to explain everything now. And next to that, I think the main issue we had on the team level is just the fact that we don't really see each other, and that people always work from their homes, and sort of it starts affecting motivation levels. So on a bi-weekly basis, we discuss this as a team. We look how everyone's doing. We have a very open discussion about that. And then we start looking like what are the things we can do to prevent that people sort of get in this endless COVID blur where motivation levels start sinking. Like today, we will have our final team meeting of the year, and we're sort of going to have a fun one because it's going to be more like a virtual beer tasting than a team meeting, I think.
Oh man, virtual wine tasting, beer testing. I need to come and work for you guys, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great point you make there about the motivation levels of staff when working remotely and keeping them energized. But how can you also relate to, let's say, B2B customers when they're more hidden from you now, more so than ever before, aren't they?
That's a good question. That's indeed, they're hidden in several different ways. First of all, when you're on a Zoom call, people are not in front of you. You miss a lot of what's going on, especially because a lot of communication is body language, but also it just feels less human to not be in touch in front of each other. So definitely on Zoom calls, I would say do this extra effort to be more personable. There's this advantage that you don't have to be as formal. So, and it's okay when, for instance, your dog starts barking. That happens often to me, or your children walk in or whatever. That's all fine, and you can embrace it and try to be more of a human being in his context rather than someone like with a suit on in a meeting room, whatever. Use a bit more of the tone of voice. Try to think about the person on the other side extra hard, if that makes sense. But then next to that, there's also this whole series of interactions you're having between meetings. And some of the things you can do there is just use like email tracking, use web tracking, make sure that all sort of links up, and make sure you get live notifications of what's happening. And that way you know when customers are in touch with you without you knowing, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So you know whether they're busy, what it is you're discussing. You can jump in at the right moments. You can see whether they're still interested or not. So that's definitely also something to set up if you haven't yet, to make sure that you still sort of keep that connection close.
Yeah, it is so important now. And from a technology standpoint, are there any particular tech trends that you're noticing in your industry, and anything that intrigues you or maybe even excites you about how they could be used in the year ahead?
I think many of the tools, so like the sales automation space, when we started, there was nothing. We actually, one of the reasons we call Salesflare is because we really wanted to focus on sales. We thought like these marketing people, they have all these fancy marketing automation tools already, and it all works well because they have the data, and then on top of that, they do all kinds of stuff. But for salespeople, it was like almost till the prehistoric age. And that is something that is more and more rapidly changing right now. In the last year or so, I started noticing that we are reaching a point in the sales automation space that the earliest adopters sort of know what it's all about, and they start having the tools. Not everyone yet, but the earliest adopters, and that I think many of the things are finally going to start maturing now, the tools. And part of it is also going to start merging. So there's going to be some consolidation going on where things going to end up in the same tool or platform, which then will make it way easier for salespeople to keep a grip on all of these tools.
And what about you guys? What's next for Salesflare, and what's going to be your primary focus this year?
That's something we're still discussing internally. Yeah. What's for sure is that we're going to strengthen our offering early next year for the larger companies using our software. There's going to be custom dashboards being added, which is something that is heavily requested. After that, it might be that we focus on that trend I was just mentioning. What's for sure is that we are going to keep working further to add more sales automation based on the data that we already automatically collect for people, because there's just a sort of an infinite roadmap there in terms of what's possible, because there's so many things in the sales process that are not really inherently human, where the salesperson does not really add value, where a computer can take over the job in a much better way. And we'd like to make sure that these things are more and more automated, so that salespeople can leverage what they're really strongest at, and that's the connection with the customer. That's talking to the customer, understanding them, understanding their context, figuring out what their issue is, trying to hand them solutions. It's really these human conversations, and it's not all these things you have to do around it, like inputting data and sending follow-up emails and whatever, booking meetings, organizing stuff here and there. That takes up so much of the salesperson time nowadays, but it's not really what they're made to do.
And speaking of those human conversations, for anyone listening that would like to carry on this conversation and reach out and contact your team, or maybe just find out more information about what you're doing, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, if you want to check out Salesflare, you can just head to salesflare.com, and that's FLARE for Flare. You can read all about the software. You can try it out as well. There's a button that says try it for free. You get anywhere between 7 and 30 days to try it out, because we give extra days on the trial as you set it up, to motivate people to set it up further, because we've seen that people who set their trial up better are much more likely to be successful at using the system in the long run. And if you want to get in touch with the team, there's a chat on the site. If you want to get in touch with me, the best place is LinkedIn. You can just send me a connection request. Don't forget to add a personal message saying that you heard us talk here on the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Otherwise, you disappear in the sea of LinkedIn spam I get every day.
We all get those. And I love what you're doing here. And I think at this time of year, there's so many businesses are going to be setting those sales goals for the new year. And I think a lot of the work that you're doing here, combined with some of that exciting technology and data automation, sales automation, AI, etc., there's just so much to go at. So I do urge people listening to check you guys out and send you that message. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on here and share your story with me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. This was fun.
A few key takeaways I got there when talking about Salesflare is that no more manual data entry. And I like how Salesflare almost fills out your data book and keeps track of all interactions with all the people that you're in contact with, and tracks data from social media, company databases, phone, email, calendar, and hands it to you in an automated customer timeline that tells you everything that you need to know. So you just need to write the emails and make the calls and have a coffee. That sounds quite appealing to me. But over to you all. I'd love to hear more about the experiences that you've had with CRM systems. The good, the bad, the ugly. I want to hear them all. And also any comments about today's episode, any questions you might have, or if you just want to come on the show, whatever it is, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Remember, my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. You'll find all links to my social channels where you can find me, and over 1,500 other episodes too. So another cracking conversation. A big thank you to today's guest for coming on, and an even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow, but until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.